Right, so I've done a bit of surgery there. So I'm going to have a vent which will come over here, go in there, and maybe, I don't know how many I'm going to have. Probably 2, isn't it? So you've seen me do this in the earlier videos. I make a cardboard template, cut it out in aluminium, wheel it on the English wheel with the most curved die. So it's curved that way and that way. I'll make it slightly oversized and then very slowly trim it down. So I've just taped it into place. See, these scoops are going to be slightly bigger than the rest, and they sort of get smaller as you go down. So it just comes out a little bit more here, a little bit higher here. Next one will be bigger again. Well, I'll be honest, I've been pushing hard lately because the event is coming up quick. And yeah, so what I've done, you can see, I've added 2 more scoops. One here and then a big one here. Head fairings here. This is the firewall here. So there's no air going in there. But we've got air going in there. Another big one. And then all the way down. So basically I want this whole area here to be slightly positive pressure when you're going forwards. And it's feeding out of the radiator, also to the air filter, which will be back here. And then also a little bit of air will go down this side of the radiator, down here. Just keeps a bit of airflow through past the engine. To weld into a groove with thin metal as well is difficult. You've got to get up really close with the point of the tungsten, because the cone of plasma kind of heats the edges, not the middle of the cone. So you have to sort of move it around. So the secret to that is to get in tight, which makes it really likely you're going to touch. And I don't know, it's just too difficult for me, to be honest. So what I've done is I've got tabs bent out from this. I've got tabs bent out, and the tabs are then welded from underneath to these. So if you look at the top, it's quite elegant, but if you look underneath, it definitely isn't. Well, I suppose beauty in the eye of the beholder, but you can see there's tabs bent out. Sort of, here's an example. And then they're welded on from underneath. So it's not pretty, but like there. So it's welded, that one's welded in 3 places. That was welded in 4, I think. Yeah, that one's welded in 4 places, you see. So it's not that pretty to look at, but it kind of works and it's reasonably strong. So let's put it on the car and see if it still fits. Okay, 120 flap disc. Right, so these are all ready to be sprayed with primer. Right, last few finishing touches today. Check all the lug nuts are tight before I put my hubcaps on. Then I painted the other day. Roll cage foam all needs to go in. Foam pads where necessary. I need to do the tracking because, well, I need to get the front wheels parallel at the moment. God knows, they're roughly right. And I know what's going to happen. As soon as I get these pointing the right way, this steering yoke's going to be pointing like 90 degrees or something weird. So I'm going to have to take all that apart and refit it onto the splines. I should have realised that before I spent an hour doing that yesterday. You can see I've also used one of those label maker machines. I had one of those as a kid. And they were always a bit rubbish, but they're kind of, you see a lot of belly tanks and cars like that, sort of use them as labels, so you can get reproduction ones. I've also thread locked these nuts on these aluminium popper things because they're a bit feeble and they have a tendency to just shake loose, so use high strength, the red high strength Loctite thread lock on those. Oh yeah, I've got my capping piece that goes on here as well. I'll fit that once I've done the foam, or maybe at the same time, so they don't interfere with each other. Yeah, so small things, but important. The forums say wheel nut lugs should be done up to between 60 and 100 foot-pounds. I mean, all through the lives of these cars, I'm sure nobody ever bothered using a torque wrench to do that up, to do them up, but I might as well do it properly, especially because I'm putting hubcaps on, so you won't see if they're loose. You might hear them rattling around, possibly. And the best description I've seen so far is it should be tight, but not red in the face tight. So like 100 foot-pounds I suppose is tight, and 200 foot-pounds is red in the face tight. So there you go. That's a really crude way of measuring torque, but it's probably about right. Anyway, so I'm going to do all these up, just check them, put the hubcaps on, then I'll start doing the tracking, then I'm going to have to readjust my steering wheel position probably. Now all the time I've been working on these, just sanding them and putting the bit of black, satin black round, I've been thinking the same thing. These just remind me of something, and old movies, cheap B movies. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking belly tanks didn't have hubcaps. They used to have the aluminium moon disc type things, and then they would remove the backing plates here, remove all that, and replace it with an aluminium disc, which came right out, almost skimming the wheel here. And the answer to that is yeah, that's a project for next winter because I've run out of time and I'm not taking the wheels apart anymore. I'm not taking anything off. And also with the moon discs, you've got to, well, the way you are meant to put them on is you tap a thread into the rim at 3 points, and they're held in with 3 very, very short bolts. Obviously you don't want them going through and damaging your inner tube. So again, there's no way I'm taking the tyres off and the tubes out and everything else to do that. Apparently an alternative way is you would weld little brackets on and you'd use these quick release fasteners like these to hold them on, which is arguably better because it allowed you to take them off, you know, in a speedy manner to check your wheel lugs and things. I don't know. Anyway, I think the classic caps look pretty good actually for now. I think they kind of quite suit the car, but there you go. So anyhow, the traditional belly tanker look was aluminium discs front this side, flat aluminium discs on the back side, replacing the backing plates, and something similar on the rear as well. But seeing as I've got just less than a week to go, I'm going to go with the standard hubcaps. So these are the other 4 caps. So I've got to pick the best 3. So some of them have had all the paint removed from the centre. These 2 are still partially black. So I think what I do, I use that one and that one on the rear, and then one of these two on the front, the other front side. That one's got the most paint still left on it, and it's got a few big dents, and that one's the most scratched up. So on balance, probably gonna have to go for that one. The other thing I've read somewhere is when it comes to wheels, if you find a wheel that's still got these spring tabs on to take the hubcaps, in other words, they're not just rusted off, you're doing all right. That's probably on the better end of the wheel spectrum. So this is the plan with the tracking. The first thing is to get one of the wheels at least pointing perfectly forwards, so that when we're going in a straight line, I want that wheel and that wheel to both be pointing forwards. Now that one is pointing forwards. I've lined it up with the back one. The reason there's a gap there is because the track from inner wheel rim measured to inner wheel rim, the steel, not the rubber, at the back is slightly wider than this side. That gap allows for the difference. So as long as that distance there and there are the same, then I know this wheel is pointing, I know, to within a hair's width of a degree, is pointing perfectly forwards. So now I need to get that one parallel with that one, and the way I'm going to do that is use the tape measure method. So I've taken the body panel off here for a reason. I'll measure from a point on the tread, straight line straight through the body here with the tape measure to the same point on the tread this side, do the same on the front, and then adjust this long rod that goes across right between two wheels, because you see that one is pointing in a bit at the moment. Bring that out until they measure the same. Strictly you should have a tiny bit of toe in, but then this isn't a road car, so I'm not sure. I just want I probably want them parallel. I mean, what you should do is roll it back and forward a few times, bring it forward and then measure it again in case there's any slack in any of the linkages. That's another reason we might put a tiny bit of toe in on it. So I've undone that side. I've just pushed this wheel back out, check this one's still pointing forwards using my pointed forward method, and then I've measured from this groove to this groove, and I've done the same at the back through the body, keeping the tape measure straight, not fouled on anything. So at the back we've got 139 centimeters, and at the front we've got 140. So that means we've got a slight toe out. So that's like that, slight toe out. Sorry, well, if we're facing the same way as the car, like that, toe out, and we want that or a tiny bit of toe in. So what you can do is, if you're on your own, because your mates aren't really interested in cars and they think you're crazy, is you can put that in the groove and tape it, and then it actually makes it a lot easier to measure. So if I do that now, what do we got? Try and measure it's exactly the same point. Are you going to go into if the groove has got like pattern in it, you're going to go on the inside edge or the outside bit of the pattern. So just same each time. Try and keep it level as well each time you measure it. You can either call that toe in or pretty much parallel. So now what I've got to do is undo this here, unscrew it like that, bolt it up to there without moving this wheel even a tiny bit. So I've undone this a few turns and tried to get it to match roughly the number of turns that one's been undone. And you can see very gently, because I don't want this wheel to move at all, that goes in there pretty much all the way up the taper, and the wheel hasn't moved. So I'll loosely bolt that into place and recheck the measurements again just to check it's not moved. So you can see here I had to play around with some washers here to get the right to get the teeth of the castle nut in the right height relative to the hole. If I just use one washer, the hole would have been too high, and the risk is that this would still be able to rotate under the pin. So this side is actually slightly different. I had to use 2 thick washers there, and on that side I used a thick and a thin. Right, so I've remeasured 138.7 across the front, 139.1 across the rear, so we've got incredibly tiny bit of toe in. So the next thing to consider is the length of this linkage, because you want this to be bang in the middle when the wheels are forward, so you've got the same amount of steering each way. So it's not quite, is it? So I might need to lengthen that a touch. Okay, so in the end all I had to do was adjust that out that much. So then we turn that up and it locks it. Same that end as well. Right, a bit of positive news. With the wheels now pointing forwards, the yoke is actually the right way up. So obviously I did think what I was doing when I was bolting that on originally. You can see the steering arm is in the mid position. So that's full left lock. And you can see we've actually got an inch there, which is good. So that's full right. So that's similar. So we've got equal travel each way. I've had cars before that would steer more in one direction than the other. In fact, I had an exhaust replaced once on a car and it wouldn't turn left at all. This is a GoPro mount. It's got a thread in it and the mount will screw onto that, and then the camera is like a quick disconnect from the mount. There's one there as well for the sort of over the shoulder shot, or you can point it backwards, and then one here as well if you want a shot like this down the side. Now what I'm doing now is pool noodles, race roll cage padding. You can see the hole is not in the centre. That's deliberate, and it's quite a dense foam. You don't want it too soft, otherwise there's no point having it. So I need to put that round the various tubes in such a way I can still get in and out without damaging it. And I've colour matched it as best I can. We've got a light grey electrical tape, also got light grey extra long cable ties, so they're not quite the same colour as the rest of the car, but they're about as close as I'm likely to get. Right, well, I've been cutting foam for hours. You can see, so this was 6 lengths of the foam. So now I'm going to take the panels off again and give myself a bit more room, a bit more access, and start taping and cable tying. To fix these ones on, I'll need to drill some little holes here so the cable tie can come through and round. So there's the foam all taped up on the top and down there, and the bits where I couldn't get the roll of tape round I've cable tied. So I need to trim all the ends. Now the other thing I've got is, no, this isn't my idea. I saw this on a car. I'll find the photo for you. It's like a capping plate. You see with all this is a bit irregular. Put that on, little capping plate. I need to push that down, but you can see it just kind of tidies it all up and blends it into that rear fairing here. Right, well, I've finally finished the foam. So I've wrapped the foam in tape here before fixing it on. Makes it a little bit more sort of abrasion proof. I run out of tape, so I'm not going to do that or these, although I might do that in next over the winter or something. I took the padding off the front bar. I was looking at a lot more pictures online, and yeah, a lot of people sort of pad it all around where the shoulder area is, head area. Got padding here right up to the front. I've got a pad, you can't see it, but I've got a pad under there as well. So, I mean, that's actually a lot more than is required, but that's probably a good thing. So, yeah, people tend to leave off this front bar because your head is kind of here. I think that's the argument. And also, to be honest, to get in the car, then I lean backwards and I put my arms over here and I sort of slide down them and drop into the seat. So it's quite useful for me not to have foam on that front edge there. So next thing, the anti-rollover valve still has not arrived, even though it's on 24-hour delivery, and I paid a lot of extra for that. So for now, I've just got a vent tube basically. So the vent tube goes down and it comes out through the body, through that little brass connector that I bought through panel mount. See, there it is, right down there. So I can just splice that in if and when it arrives. Now the other thing I've done is fit these. They're quick release battery clamps. I mean, they look a bit cheap and nasty, but the main thing with them is they work fine. They grip really well. Main thing is you've got to make sure I've actually doubled over the copper wires here before clamping them into the clamp, because there's no way you want it to pull out accidentally. You just don't want that to happen. So as long as the wires all bunched up, stuffed into the clamp, and they're done up really tight, I think that's the main thing. Positive, remember, here will go on, it'll snap down like that, which means it can quickly, well, I can basically quickly release it from the cockpit. And it's just handy because, you know, if you want to disconnect your battery quickly, so if kids are messing around, they don't accidentally start the car, because it doesn't actually have an ignition key. It's quite handy to have that, and it's quite handy that it's not completely obvious where it is. It's kind of tucked away, but I can reach it from inside the cockpit. So the next thing I need to do is go and get some petrol or gasoline, as it's called in the US. This always freaks people out because I'm going to go and get it in an electric car, and I pull up at the petrol pump and everyone's like, ha ha, what an idiot, and then they fill that up. So I've done it before, gives everyone a laugh anyway. Other goodies, this stuff is ridiculously expensive. It's basically you put it around your fuel line, and it stops heat soak from the engine bay getting into your fuel line, which is meant to reduce the chance of air locks. So I probably don't need it at all, but I'm going to use it because what I'm doing is minimizing the risk of trouble. So if you run the engine, park the car, everything gets hot, including the carb. It's possible you could get fuel boiling off and air bubbles forming, or vapor lock, sorry, not air locks, vapor locks. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to stick some of this around my fuel line, which is pretty short anyway, which is good, but just because, you know, I'm just reduce the number of things that can go wrong basically. I've got another last minute adjustment here. I've welded in this panel here, and I think, well, what does that do apart from look nice? When I put the top cover on, I tend to drop it down and then slide it forward to get the U-shaped cutout to come under here. So of course the bottom corner has a habit of poking these wires. So it makes it a lot easier if it hits some metal and slides down, basically, as you drop it, then slide it forward. So that's what that's for, it's just protective. My anti-vapor lock wrap is all on now. I don't know what use that will be, but maybe it'll help a bit. I really don't know. Maybe it's curing a problem that's not even there. But it's better to be safe than sorry, I think. Well, the great thing about this is, number one, it's plastic, so it doesn't conduct electricity, of course. Secondly, it's like slightly bendy plastic, if you look. So it's got a bit of give in it, and it's really ideal for cutting with a Dremel with a cutting disc in it. So I've been trimming away. And that's the shape we end up with, but you can see not only has it got to cover the battery, but you've got to be able to get it in and out through quite a narrow gap without taking the seat out each time, because the inspectors want to see that the battery is fixed firmly in the car, which means they might want to see that I've seen me take this out, or at least see the fixings. So there's the battery. You see the clamp is in place, so with a bit of squeezing, I have to take the side panel off. I can get that in over the negative lead, which is sort of in the distance, then jiggle it around into place there, and I can fit the quick release positive there. You can see the clamp there holding it down, so the inspector might pass it like that, and if he needs to see the cover removed, then that's not too big a deal. And also it largely protects the battery from water, and just kind of, I don't know, it's worked out quite well. It did. Yeah, in neutral. Okay, fire. Right, I stopped because we're at 3000 RPM. So why are we not on tick over? Why is it running fast? Right, well, one thing it could be is the fairing restricting the air filter, so we're getting a richer mixture at tick over. Let's just try it like that. So neutral, yes. Power, instruments, accelerator pedals definitely back, accelerator linkage is all the way back to, yeah. Choke's definitely off, yeah. Nothing's stuck on, nothing's jammed. Okay, give it a see what it ticks over at now. Start. Okay, so we're getting airflow restriction. Just as all I did this test then, isn't it? Okay, emergency measures. I'm going to have to make an oval cutout in the top here of this, where it covers that filter. Okay, it's got a clutch. Now I've done that thing where you turn a problem into a feature. So if I was going to put a mesh grille here, but I'm not sure whether I'll bother. If I paint that black rather than orange, it'll look like it was just like meant to be like that, to be honest. So you can see how the the body was basically completely restricting half the filter here. It was completely hugging it, so that's no good, is it? Yeah. So the bottom of the filter will get air up through here. It's just the top half was just completely blocked off. So actually I tidied that a little bit up with an aluminium strip there. You can see it just tucks in each side, and it's held on with 2 rivets inside, because basically running out of time, so it's just quickest way to do it. Keep it neat and make it look like I meant it to be like that all along, of course, which I did, obviously. Well, here we are. The tide at the minute is not all the way in, but you can see it's a very shallow beach, so the tide here goes right out, and then this part semi-dries and goes reasonably hard. This is the ramp that the cars come down. If you come here in the winter, there's literally nobody here except a few fishermen. So this part here, I'm looking back now, there's the ramp. This all becomes a car park on the beach, and then from this area with this little bay of stones, this is where they corral all the cars at the start. And then roughly where that sign is, presumably I can't go past it today, that's roughly where the start line is. Let's go and have a read of that. Right, so you can see from the wire fencing and everything from now on, this is all a military kind of test firing range. There's a bit of a clue here. Yeah. Report any suspicious bits to Connecticut. Connecticut is when they privatised a whole section of the Ministry of Defence many years ago. A few civil servants became very wealthy men. There we are. So today this is as far as you can go. Just goes on and on. And on a sunny day, all you see is like a heat haze shimmer. You can see how flat it is, apart from the odd jellyfish.